Hello everyone. Thank you for joining today's session on free OpManager training series. And before we start, I would like to get a quick confirmation from you all. If you can hear me well and see the presentation, please use the webinar chat panel and type yes. Let me wait for a couple of confirmation and then we can get started. Alright, as many of you have confirmed now, we are good to go. Let me introduce myself. My name is Suresh Bhagavati, Evangelist for Manage Engine IT Operations Suite. I'm with Manage Engine for the past 10 years. Before I ended up in this role, I was working as a support engineer with the OpManager technical team and helped customers and prospects around the globe to make best use of OpManager in their organization. So with all these experience, I'm here doing a 5-part free OpManager training series. As you all know, we have already covered the first 2 sessions. In the first session, discovery and classification, you would have learned the different ways of getting your inventories inside OpManager. And in the previous session, you would have learned about the server performance monitoring. And in our today's topic, we are going to learn about network performance monitoring. And the rest of the topic will be covered based on the date and time displayed on your screen. And more importantly, the recorded version of this webinar will be emailed to you by tomorrow along with the training material. And you can very well share this with your friends or colleagues who missed to join today's session. Also, the recorded version and the questions discussed during today's session will be uploaded in our training page, and you can access the training page using the URL displayed on your screen. All right, so let's get started with our week 3 topic, network performance monitoring. So let's see what we got here in our agenda today. Monitoring the network performance. So we're going to learn how to monitor the CPU, memory, and temperature performance metrics on the network devices like routers, switches, firewalls, and printer. And we are going to learn how to monitor the bandwidth usage on the interfaces. That includes errors, discards, utilization, in traffic, out traffic, and so on. And also, apart from the performance metrics, OpManager can also monitor the hardware sensors on the network devices. We are going to learn about that. And we're going to learn how to create a custom SNMP monitor for the new model that you created in OpManager, or for the available templates for which you cannot find a default SNMP monitor. And IPSLA monitoring, we're going to see about the WAN performance monitoring and the VoIP performance monitoring. And SNMP monitor not collecting data is a typical case we see in support, and we are going to discuss about the performance monitor not collecting data, interfaces not discovered, interfaces monitor not collecting data. So we are going to learn how to troubleshoot all these problems in a simple method. And we're going to talk about the network reports, and finally questions. At any point of time during the presentation, you have any questions, please feel free to post that in the webinar chat panel, and we have a panelist team who can answer all your questions right there. And also, after this session, we have 15 minutes to discuss all the questions that we received during the session. So that will be handled by one of our panelists. All right, so let's get started with monitoring the network performance. So the screen that shows the information of the performance metrics and the protocols that we use to fetch the information. For Cisco UCS, it uses UCS API, and for network devices apart from routers, switches, it also monitors the printer UPS through SNMP, and for WAN and VoIP, it uses IPSLA, and it does support only for the Cisco devices. And any network device that you wish to monitor in OpManager, you have to make sure that SNMP is configured on those devices. And as a rule of thumb, if any device that is pingable and SNMP enabled can be monitored by OpManager. All right, so let's get started with monitoring the performance on the router. So let me switch to the product and show how this can be done. All right, so okay, so Let me go to a device template page and show you how OpManager classifies a device as a router or a switch. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I believe some of you still cannot hear me. Uh, can you give me a confirmation? All right, I'm sorry about that. A couple of you are facing some problem hearing the audio. I'm sure it is not a problem from our end because many of you have confirmed saying that you can hear me well. Yes, so I'm going to continue with my session. All right, so as I was telling you, we have close to 4,000 device templates available, and based on which OpManager will classify a device, whether it is a router or switch uh, or any type. So based on the device identifier, based on the system object ID, OpManager classifies the device as based on the type, and it classifies the vendor name and the category, and it associates all the default performance metrics that listed here. So when a device is added, it automatically assigns all these performance metrics to the device, and it starts monitoring the performance. So let me go to a router snapshot page. So this is how a router snapshot page looks like. So when a router is added to OpManager, this is what you will see. You will see all the information of the router, and on the interface, the router graph, it displays all the information of the router. So maybe I picked a wrong example. Okay. So when you go to router graph, it displays all the information of the performance metrics that's been associated to the device. As you see, buffer hits, the router CPU utilization, buffer failures, buffer misses, the Cisco memory utilization, and so on. And when you go to monitors page, this is what you will see. So from the templates, we saw the default monitors listed. So all those default monitors will be added to the respective device that is added in OpManager, and it starts monitoring the devices. And you can also define thresholds for the specific performance metrics, so that when it deviates from the threshold or when it violates the configured threshold value, it triggers an alert and sends out a notification to you. All right, so similarly, it monitors the switch performance. So apart from CPU and memory, based on the category, it monitors the backplane utilization for the switches and active session count for the firewall. And it also monitors the printer performance. So it monitors the print, whether when there is a paper jam on a printer, or low paper or no paper, low toner or no toner. Let me show you from the product. So again, I'll go to a device template. I'm picking Epson, for example. So if you go to the device template, you can see the monitors like low paper, paper jam, low paper, no paper, average marker, life count, and the pages, number of pages printed. So all these default monitors will get added to the printer when it is discovered. The same way, we also support the HP printers, and if you go to the device template and search for printer, so you can see a lot of device templates for printers supported by default in OpManager. Right. So let's move on to the next section. Here I'm going to talk about monitoring the interfaces bandwidth usage, errors, discards, received and transmitted traffic, total bytes received, total bytes transferred, and real-time interface monitors. So all these are SNMP based monitoring, and if you would like to know more information, like to understand who are the top talkers in your network, which application is using most of your bandwidth, and it can be done through a flow based bandwidth analysis tool. That is one of our add-on that is available to OpManager, and it is also available as a standalone tool. You can use that for flow based monitoring, but with OpManager we can do only SNMP based monitoring with this bandwidth usage. So let me show you an example again. So when a router or switch discovers the devices, it automatically brings all the interfaces and starts monitoring the performances. And if you go to inventory page and navigate to interfaces, here is where you will see all the interfaces listed. And let me pick an example and show you what it does for monitoring the interfaces bandwidth usage. So on the summary page, you get to know the admin and operational status, the IP address of the interface and the interface name, the alias name and the traffic counter type, the interface speed, received traffic, transmitted traffic, and so on. The interface graph again shows you all the total bytes transferred, the interface traffic utilization, in traffic and out traffic, and errors, discards, and also the packets received and packets, number of packets transmitted. So if you click on the monitors tab, you will see all the monitors for the interface associated to the device. I'll also show you from the device page. So this is the overall. So globally, you want to see how many number of interfaces you want to monitor. You will see that under the interface page. And the advantage of listing all these interfaces here, you will be able to generate the report for all the interfaces, and you can choose the time and select what are all the performance metrics for the interfaces that you would like to generate a report for, and it brings in the report globally for all the interfaces that you had selected. So that is the advantage of looking at the interfaces page here. If you go to interface page again and navigate to devices, and again you have a dedicated page for interfaces that lists only the interfaces that's being monitored from this particular router. So it gives you the status, whether based on the severity and the interface name, the type, and the the received and transmitted traffic. And the small icon you see here will show a real-time graph. So right now there is no flow on this particular interface. So if there is a flow, you will see the real-time traffic on the particular interface. And also from the dashboards, you can create the dashboards based on your need. So for example, if you go to add widgets and search for real-time widgets, that gives you the real-time traffic and the real-time bandwidth utilization widgets. So you can add those widgets and edit and select what type of device and what is the interface on which you wanted to see the real-time traffic. All right, so let me switch to the product again. Okay, let me talk about the interface templates. So by default, OpManager has the interface templates for more than 250 types, and like device template, you have interface templates here. So that lists more than 250 device types. And let me pick Ethernet for example, and this page that actually displays the information. So it allows you to enable or disable the performance monitoring of this particular interface type. Say for example, you wanted to disable the performance monitoring for Ethernet type, you can disable. So the interface gets added, but the performance monitoring will be ignored for this particular type. And you wanted to change the monitoring interval for the respective interface. So based on the criticality, you can just go ahead and reduce the monitoring interval up to 1 second, and you wanted to disable the utilization monitoring for this, and only monitor errors and discards and update the thresholds for the errors and discards. You can do that. And interestingly, you can also enable or disable the status polling for this particular interface. Say for example, you wanted to monitor all the performances for those particular interfaces, but not to monitor the status polling, not to monitor the up-down status of this particular interface. Then you can disable, and you can save this and apply. So you can apply this to all the interfaces. So that gets applied globally to all the devices. Whatever the changes that you had made, in just one click, all the changes will be applied to all the devices. So this is what we saw right now. So configuring monitoring interval, configuring the thresholds for utilization, errors, and discards, enable or disable interface status polling. All right. So apart from monitoring the performances metrics on network devices, it does monitor the hardware sensors. So hardware sensors like power, temperature, voltage, battery, disk array data, fan status, all this can be monitored. And the supported vendors are Cisco, Juniper devices, Dell, and HP devices. Let me switch to the product and show you where you can monitor the hardware sensor monitoring. Okay, let me navigate to inventory page, and let me pick this device for example. And here, if I drill down to hardware page, this gives me the hardware report for temperature and voltage volts. So based on the information that we receive from SNMP OIDs for the hardware sensors, all the performance metrics for the hardware sensors will be monitored. And you also have a dedicated report for the hardware sensor monitoring. If you can navigate to health and performance section in the reports, at the bottom you will see hardware health report. So from here you can select the device type for which you wanted to generate the hardware report for and the parameter, and you can generate the report right here. So now the question, how do I enable hardware sensor monitoring in OpManager? So it's very simple and straightforward. Go to settings and system settings, and if you go to hardware monitor, by default the hardware monitoring will be disabled. You can enable this by selecting this enable hardware monitor. And some of you might not be interested in receiving the notifications for hardware sensors but wanted to generate a report. In that case, you can suppress the hardware alarms, and based on your need you can reduce the monitoring interval. Right now it says 15 minutes, so you can, whatever the changes you want to do and save it, the changes will get reflected. So that's how you enable the hardware sensor monitoring. So let me talk about how to create a custom SNMP monitor now. So why do you need to create a custom SNMP monitor? There are certain cases for which you will create a device template for the new model for which the device template is not available by default. And if sometimes the default monitors will be available, but you want to monitor some additional information on those devices, and you can add that as a custom monitor to the respective device type. So these are all the prerequisites. So you have to ensure that the respective device is enabled with SNMP, and it must have a vendor MIPS, and you need to have the valid SNMP OIDs to add a custom SNMP monitor. So now that we know the prerequisites, let's understand what is a MIB file. So MIB file that has a collection of OIDs, and it will be in the MIB file format or text file format, but it will not be human readable. So it will all have all the parameters passed in, but you need a tool like MIB browser to parse those parameters and see what is the performance metric and what is the OID. So how to obtain these MIB files? So you can either get it from the vendor or you can browse and get it from the internet. Like for example, oidview.com got a lot of MIB files from various vendors. So you can search for the respective vendor MIB file, and you can upload that in OpManager. So now that there are two ways in getting the MIBs uploaded in OpManager. If you have an access to server, say for example, I got a MIB from Palo Alto, so I got a bunch of files. So I can just simply go to OpManager installation folder, and I will find a MIBs folder here. So I can simply copy all the MIBs to this directory, and you don't need to restart OpManager for uploading the MIB files. So it takes effects automatically. And how can I upload this from the product GUI? Yes, there is an option too. And if you go to settings, tools, MIB browser, and this is where you can upload. Just browse and upload the respective MIB file, and just click on upload. That gets uploaded to the product. And the advantage of putting this on the server directly is here you have to upload all the MIB files one by one, but from the product you can just copy and paste all the MIB files to the MIBs directory. So this is how you get the MIB files inside OpManager. And identifying the valid OIDs, let me explain that with the example. Number one, creating a custom monitor for Palo Alto Network 7000 series firewall. And I've been asked to create a custom SNMP monitor for active session and active tunnels. So let me show you how you can do this. Let me go to configuration and let me search for the device template. So this is the device template. I already got a device template and I got a bunch of performance monitors already added. So why do I need to add a custom SNMP monitor then? So I can also add more monitors here, but as you see, I cannot find the monitors that I want. I need active session and active tunnels to be added, but I cannot find the respective monitors here. So let me show you how you can do that. So I'm just going to upload the relevant MIB file, and from here it will be difficult for me to find the MIB files. So what I can do is, let me show you a better way to find the valid OIDs. So if you go to MIBs directory, if you go to OpManager bin directory, there is a batch file called mibbrowser.bat. If you execute this, this opens a standalone MIB browser. So why am I using this to show how you can find the valid OIDs? This lets you load multiple MIBs. Say, for example, I'm just selecting the PAN common MIB where I have the OIDs for the active session and active tunnel, but it might have a dependent MIB file like pan global rec. So it automatically detects that and load that here, which this cannot be done in OpManager, the MIB browser available in the OpManager GUI. And also you can load multiple MIBs, and the option here that is going to help you create a custom SNMP monitor or find the valid OIDs are. So as you can see, there are thousands of OIDs available here. So it's difficult for you to go through one by one to find the respective OID. So I'm just going to use the find all option to find my parameter, so which is active session. So I could find it easily. So this is the OID for the PAN session active. You can see the object ID here, and you want to know what this object ID does, what this performance metric does. It helps me find the total number of active sessions, and also the syntax is very important. The OpManager, any custom monitor that you're going to add, please make sure that you add the OID that has a syntax as integer or counter. So only those returns the value in numeric, so we can plot the graph for the responses that we receive as numeric. So it should be, the syntax should be integer or counter. Some of the MIB files, some of the MIBs that might have a display string. So in case if you are trying to add this, it will return the output in, though it returns the output in number, it might be the syntax is string, so it cannot store the value in the numeric table, so which cannot plot the graph for you. So there is a separate example for this. I will show you how you can convert the string OID to numeric and store the data in OpManager. But right now, we also wanted to monitor the active tunnel. So there is a OID for this, and again it meets my criteria. It is an integer syntax. So now now that I know the OIDs, let me log into the product and show you how you can do this. So I'm going to search for, yeah, this is the OID that I was looking for. So let me name it active session. So I'm just clicking OK. So it got added here. Similarly, I can load the MIB file again, and looking for active tunnel. Let me configure the monitoring interval as 5 and the unit as count, and it gets added. So this is how you add a custom SNMP monitor in OpManager. And if I save an associate, this gets added to the template first. So any device that I add in future will add the active session count and the active tunnel monitor along with the monitors that's been listed. So I can just move these devices and apply this so that this gets added to the already added discovered devices in OpManager. So this is how you create a custom SNMP monitor in OpManager. So our next example is multiple OIDs with arithmetic operation. So what will I do if I have two OIDs that is responding different values, but I wanted to use some arithmetic operation and see that as a single value in OpManager? You can still do that. So let me show you how you can do that. And let me pick a Cisco device, for example, and I'm clicking on add to add a performance monitor through SNMP, and here I'm using the add bulk option because I can include the arithmetic operation for the OIDs only through add bulk option. Say for example, I'm trying to add OID for memory utilization. So it gives information about used memory with this OID, free memory with this OID, and the calculation for the overall memory utilization is memory used multiplied by 100 and divided by total memory. Total memory is going to be memory used plus free memory. So here is the calculation with all the OID I got. Let me copy this, and I'm going to use that here. I'm going to call this as router memory utilization, and 5 minutes percentage. So I save this. Okay, save this, and it gets added here. And there is an option you see here, show dial. So whenever you add a custom SNMP monitor and you wanted to display that data on the device snapshot page, you can enable the widget here. So if you enable this and save it, so the newly added monitor will display the data on the device snapshot page. So let me go and talk about the string to numeric example. That is our last example in creating a custom SNMP monitor. So let me go to this setup and go to settings, tools, web browser, and I'm going to select host resource MIB. I'm going to select a string monitor. So as you can see, the syntax is string here. So it is going to, okay, let me select the device. And okay, so this gives me the output in integer value, but though it is a syntax, the syntax is string, so OpManager cannot store this in the numeric table. So what we have to do in order to convert that and show this, add the data or store the data in the numeric table so that it can plot the graph for you. Let me show you how you can do this. Copy the OID from here, and if you go to settings, configuration, let me pick the Epson, for example, since it's a printer OID. I'm going to add, I'm going to use add bulk. I'm going to paste this OID here. I'm going to call this monitor as error codes. And I can use the functional expression as string to numeric because this is a string OID. So I'm converting this as string to numeric and I'm adding the respective information. And the same way, say for example, if I have a monitor called temperature and I'm monitoring that returns the value in Celsius, but I wanted to convert that to Fahrenheit and see the information displayed as Fahrenheit for temperature in OpManager. I can do that using the functional expression. Similarly, you can do this for converting the value from, say, in case the OID that responds the value in kilobyte and you want to convert that to megabyte or gigabyte, you can do that using the functional expression. So this is how you use the functional expression to convert the OID. As you can see, the monitors gets added. Save this template. All right. So with that, I'm moving on to the IPSLA monitoring section. Let's assume that you have your development center based in India and your headquarters based in California, USA, where your employees from development center India trying to access some of the critical servers in headquarters via WAN link. If something goes wrong, that could definitely affect the productivity. So it is very critical to monitor the health of the WAN links and performance. So it is tricky to monitor the WAN infrastructure because as it involves the ISP. But when something goes wrong, you need to know whether the problem is within your network or from the ISP router. So OpManager helps you monitor the WAN performance, and it helps you identify the network paths with high round trip time. It helps you identify where the outage happened by viewing the hop-wise latency graph. And it helps you collect IPSLA traps for events such as connection loss, and the threshold can be configured for round trip time, and when it violates, it triggers an alert. You can monitor the average payload and so on. So let me show how this can be done from the product. So if we go to dashboard, and from the network section, there is a separate dashboard for WAN RTT. So you can find the least performing path, the least available paths, and the hop view graph that gives you which hop is weak during the transmission, and where you can access the WAN monitoring data. Go to list view, IPSLA, and click on WAN. This gives you the number of WAN monitors that you added in OpManager. And when you go to the detail page, you can understand the minimum round trip time, average round trip time, maximum round trip time, and threshold violation, the violability graph, violation history, the round trip time history, and so on. And now let's understand what are the prerequisites to add the WAN monitor. So the prerequisites are, we support only Cisco devices. So it should be a Cisco device with an IPSLA agent enabled, and the iOS version must be 12.3 or later. The SNMP read and write community should be configured on the respective device, and it should be added in OpManager. Because when you add the monitor, it actually writes the configuration on the router, so that the write community is important, and you have to configure the router to send the traps to OpManager server so that it can monitor the traps like connection loss and so on. So now that we know this prerequisite, let's understand how to add the WAN monitor in OpManager. So you have to go to inventory page, list view, and add IPSLA. Let me show that the product. If you go to inventory page, IPSLA, click on WAN. You have a small icon, plus icon, click on it, and you just need to provide a name, select the source router, source interface, and the destination IP can be any IP across the network, and just save it to add the monitor. So that's how you add the WAN monitor in OpManager. So similarly, it does monitor the VoIP performance, monitors the jitter to understand the variation in delay between arriving packets, checks the latency, the time taken for the voice packets to reach the destination, monitors the packet loss, and it gives you the standard measuring codes, and it rates on a scale from 1 to 5. And let me show that in the product. So again, you have a dedicated dashboard for VoIP. You go to network section and VoIP overview dashboard that shows the information of top call performances by location, top call paths by jitter, and shows the minimum and maximum average of the call path, the latency graph, and so on. And similarly, if you go to the IPSLA section, there is a tab for VoIP, and if you wanted to add a VoIP, you can click the plus icon to add it. Go to the details of the page, gives you the data of the source to jitter, destination to source jitter, round trip time, source to destination for the packet loss, the threshold details of round trip time, the upper limit and lower limit, the mean opinion score. The upper limit is 5 and the lower limit is 3.5, and the jitter, packet loss, latency, all these information can be captured for the VoIP links. And let's come to the last portion of our presentation, the SNMP monitor not collecting data. This is a typical support case we see. So what I have to do if a performance monitor is not collecting the data? So what are the things that I need to verify? Make sure that the CPU, memory, and the temperature monitors are added for the respective device. Some of you missed this, and you check the report and the report is not available. So you have to ensure that the respective monitor is added, and you have to ensure that the port 161 is not blocked by a firewall, and you have to test the credentials and update the community string and the password, whether it is v1, v2, or v3 from the respective page. And I've checked all these things. The monitors are associated, the port are not blocked by the firewall, and the credentials are okay. What should I do now? So you have to check this from the web browser. So let me show you. For example, I'll show, go to tools, web browser, and I'm loading a Cisco web. So all that I have to do is I have to add the device in question here, and it picks up the credential by itself, and all I have to do is select the respective OID and click on get. So if this shows the result here, then it's something wrong with OpManager. We have to analyze that and fix the problem. But if you're not receiving any output for the web browser, for the SNMP query from the web browser here, then something wrong with the device end, which is not supplying the data from the agent. So we have to analyze that from the network end. So this is how you troubleshoot the issues when the performance monitor is not collecting data. So I have SNMP v3 configured. So let me talk something about SNMP v3. See, apart from SNMP v1 and v2, OpManager also supports monitoring the devices through SNMP v3. Say, for example, you have created SNMP v3 credential. You can use the MD5 protocol or SHA protocol, and you can use the protocol, the encryption type as DES or AES, and you have created. So the context name here is where a lot of customers makes mistake. Some of the routers or switches will have a mandatory that you need to configure the context name for the router when you create a SNMP v3 credential. So in that case, you need to create the context name on the router, and also you need to reflect that here when you add a credential in OpManager. But if the router is not configured with context name when a credential is not created, you can leave this blank, not a problem. So in certain cases we see that customers provide the context name though it is not configured in the router. So in that case, OpManager cannot hold that information. So it is you have to make sure that only you provide the context name if it is provided, if it is configured in the router. Otherwise, you can leave it blank. And here is another top reason for the SNMP v3 that is not collecting the data. So engine ID duplication. So according to SNMP standards, the engine ID should be unique for each network device. But we have encountered problems by looking at the customer's environment that they monitor a group of network devices, but most of the devices share the same engine ID. So in that case, you cannot monitor the device if the engine ID is duplicated. So we can only monitor the first device which has got the unique ID that added to OpManager will be monitored through SNMP v3, and the next device which has the same engine ID will not be able to pull the information. So you have to make sure that when you create the credential, the engine ID is not duplicated. The engine ID is created unique. And if you want to know where you can find, you have configured SNMP v3 for many of the devices, and you're wondering why my device is not collecting data, and you can just go to DB query here and look for this table. So this gives you the entries of the devices that are associated with the SNMP v3 credential. So you can note down the engine ID. If more than one device has the same engine ID, then that's a problem. You can also check the engine table for the output. So interface is not discovered. So what are the things should I verify? Enable interface discovery from discovery profile and scan the network. So if you had discovered your network through a discovery scan, then you have to make sure that, say, let me go to discovery and discovery reports. I have created a network scan for 49 network, and look at this. It has a 5-stage discovery process, and you have to select the credential and rules and the interface section. By default, the interface is disabled, so you have to enable that and pick the respective interface type for which you wanted to be discovered and monitored in OpManager, and then you have to execute the scan again. So save and execute. So this will initiate the network scan, and it will start monitoring the devices, rediscover the already added devices, and add all the identified interfaces in OpManager for monitoring. So you have to make sure that you don't miss that when you create a discovery profile. And again, the same reasons, you have to make sure the port 161 is not blocked by a firewall, and update the community string and password if it is not matching. And how do I know, how do I troubleshoot this problem if all these things are okay, but still OpManager is not discovering the interfaces? So this is where we read all the interface related information from the RFC 1213 and IFMIB. So if we go to settings, tools, my browser, and just expand this. So if I select the device in question and select the credential and click on get, this should list all the interfaces of that particular device. If it is not listing, then that should be a problem. The SNMP agent is not reporting to the SNMP query. Otherwise, if it is responding to the query and still it is not added in OpManager, that is something that need to be analyzed by us and fix that problem. And what do I do if my interface monitor is not collecting data? And things to verify, pretty much same. You have to check for the port, and the community string and password need to be updated. And how do I troubleshoot this problem? You can load the FMIB, expand this. If you go to FMIB here, so it has information about the if in octet, the in traffic, if out octet, the out traffic, the errors, discards. So all these information, so whatever the information that is not showing the data, you can select. If it is not collecting the in traffic utilization, you can select the OID, select the device in question, update the credential here, and just click on get. And based on the output, you can troubleshoot this problem, whether it is a problem from the device end or from the tool end. So if HC in octet is nothing but the OID for the 64-bit counter interface. And let's talk about the reports. So you can find the router health report, router or switch health report, and you can identify the devices with high packet loss or response time. Show you from the product. Okay. Go to reports. From health and reports, you can pull out the report for router health. So this gives the top router with CPU, memory, temperature, and with packet loss, response time, availability, and so on. Similarly, it does show for the switch, and also you can find the response time and packet loss report for the devices, and you can find the interfaces availability report and identify the overloaded devices with high CPU or memory. Availability report. Yep, so this gives you the availability report for the interfaces. You can identify the devices with high CPU. You can edit and pull out the report for the network devices alone. So you can identify the devices with heavy incoming and outgoing traffic, the errors, discards, and so on. Show that for you again. From the health and performance report, you can pull out the interfaces by received traffic, transmitted traffic, errors, discards, and so on. So with that, we are coming to the end of this presentation, and we still have 15 more minutes for to discuss the questions that we received in the session today. For more help, we have a channel called OpManager Tech Videos, which has a lot of how-to videos and the configuration short demos posted in the channel. You can take a look. And the step-by-step instructions are available in help.opmanager.com and forums.manageengine.com/opmanager. This is the pit stop for OpManager, where the technical discussions between the panel and the users will happen. So you can check all these three channels when you have any questions, and you can find answers for your questions right here. If you still want to write to us, you can feel free to write to us at the email address displayed on the screen, or you can also call us at the number displayed here. And the next training, effective fault management and IT automation, that happens next Wednesday, March 14th at the same time. And we are doing a free ITOM seminar. It's coming up next week, 13th March at Chicago and Los Angeles, 15th March. You can register yourself with the link displayed here. And with that, I'm leaving this to Mr. Sanjeev, who is one of the panelists answering all your questions for you. So now he will discuss all the interesting questions that we received in the session today. Just give me a second. Yeah, thanks for your time. Yeah, over to you, Sanjeev.
Hello everybody, this is Sanjeev. I am one of the panelists and product expert from Manage Engine. So we are going to see some interesting questions from different users that we have had over the session. So let's get to the questions one by one. First up, we had does IPSLA responder has to be enabled on both source and destination target? So it is enough that the IPSLA responder has to be enabled only on the destination target. So IPSLA, as you all might know, would be the IPSLA IP service level agreement. Next question is, do you support the hardware metrics for vendor IBM? No, currently we don't have the support to hardware metric for the vendor IBM. We do it for Cisco, Dell and Juniper set of devices, but currently it is restricted to the IBM vendor. How do I know the total amount of traffic through an interface from time 1 to time 2? Is there a report? So yes, for all of the traffic reports that you take across for interfaces, you do have a time leverage where you can actually set it across the reports. Let me just get you to the page where you can actually create it. When you go to reports, and then when you go to availability or health and performance, you have an option under every segment called as edit report, where you will be able to select a period based on a custom period. You can just provide the start date as well as the end date, and then you can just click on the show report, which is gonna give you the interface utilization or for whatever interfaces that you take based on the time period. I have an OID that has arithmetic values. I tried it using the Add MIB option. It does not work. Well, I guess this was one of the questions which Suresh might have answered in the earlier session that you had. So yes, we do have an option using the arithmetic value, but you may have to use the add bulk option. So I'm just going to give a glimpse of whatever he has done over the session now. So when you go to settings, click on configuration, and then you have device template. So if you take an example of any device, so let's say if I take a Cisco 2900 IS series, you can just go here to the template and then click on the add option. So that will take you to the add monitor page, and then click on the add bulk option, where you will be specifying the SNMP OID for your arithmetic calculation, and then specify on what is the functional expression that you would require based on whether it is Celsius to Fahrenheit or Fahrenheit to Celsius, or whatever calculation that goes through. We have a protected environment for all our SNMP enabled devices. Does IPSLA monitoring support SNMP v3? Yes, we do have the support for SNMP v3 protocol from version 12.300 onwards. So the answer is yes. I need to identify on which interfaces are with high errors and discards. How do I generate a report? Yes, we do have an option from the UI itself to generate a report based on the high errors and discards. Let me just get you to the page. So when you go to reports, and then when you click on the availability and performance, I'm sorry, we'll have to get to the exact page. So I'm just getting to the right page now. So when you go to reports and then health and performance, you have a page which will say interface with high errors and discards, or top n errors and discards. So when you go to set report inventory, you will find that option. And same way, you can also just click on edit report and then specify the custom period, and then you can generate a report, as well as you will be able to schedule a report with the time frames or with PDF and Excel options, as Suresh would have mentioned you in the earlier session. How do I monitor my total number of VPN connections out of my ASA firewall? There are currently no monitors that I see in the monitors section. Yes, just in case if there are any specific parameters that you would like to monitor, you might have to get some custom SNMP MIBs from the vendor. So once when the MIBs are obtained, you will have to create an SNMP monitor and then add it to the template. I guess the process was also being explained on how do we create a custom SNMP monitor. So just in case if there are any additional parameters that you would require for your infrastructure monitoring, we may have to get these additional OIDs or MIBs from the vendor and then add it to the template. I have tons of OIDs in the MIB file. How do I identify its description? Well, there are quite few number of OIDs that we find in the MIB file. This is also one of the common scenarios that we find it in the support file, where an end user has added so many tons of OIDs and they might not probably know what would be the best fit for them. So in that case, you can certainly identify what would be the appropriate MIB file. So there's just a small tweak that you need to do. So once when you click on the settings and then go to tools and then MIB browser, you will have the MIB file that would be already preloaded with you. So all you have to do is just expand this MIB. So let's say if I take for RFC1213, I expand this MIB. You may not be aware on what would be the ideal, description that each and every OID would carry, or probably it's just that the vendor might not have informed you. So in that case, all you have to do is just select this OID and then get to the page where it says MIB node description. So this is an example of system object identifier and its MIB node description. So the MIB node description will carry the complete information of what the OID is actually going to do and which monitoring value that it is going to fetch. So the description is completely available here with you. And the next question is about what is a round trip time. So as they say in IPSLA terminology, round trip time or round trip delay is nothing but the packet that is being transmitted from the source to the destination and then back again. So from OpManager perspective, what we do is we calculate the minimum, maximum and the average round trip time for IPSLA based devices. And this was one of the interesting questions that we had. This is last but not the least. So what we have had here is, can I see the string value as a custom dial in OpManager? So I would like to say that currently we don't have this option to show the string value as a custom dial. However, in future course, we are going to track this with the custom field string value and then we'll display it in the OpManager. So yes, in the future Limelight, we definitely have this option coming up. So these were the list of questions that we have had from the session that we have had so far. I guess the session was more informative. So just in case if you have any questions or if in case if you would require any technical assistance, you can get back to us with the email address that is provided here. And I would like to thank one and all again for your time. So you can also provide us your feedback. Thanks once again and have a great day.